I want to make a strategy game with battles like in Total War, but on a smaller scale and much more simplified. The player will start on a world map similar to the one in Final Fantasy Tactics, where they select which level to play next. Here they can also unlock and recruit new troops, as well as to buy special cards that can be used during battles to give their army an advantage over the enemy. Once in battle, the player will have to order their troops around, use the aforementioned cards, and just generally figure out a way to win, so they can unlock the next level on the world map. Rinse and repeat. Oh, and I want to have a fully functioning early version of the game done in the next 10 days. To be fair, I already did some work on this game 2 years ago, plus a while back I asked the artist I work with to create just a few assets for me to get started with. So this is what we got so far. You can order your troops to move forward and they'll do so while staying in formation. If you turn them around, they'll also find a new position so as to not collide with other troops in their unit. Then, once in range of the enemy, they'll find a suitable target and attack. Alright, so the first thing I've done is to actually remake the controls because they were a bit unpolished. Now you can click, scroll, but also click and hold, which might be useful in the future to select more than one unit or to change the size of the formations like in Total War. I've also made the camera follow a unit if you click on it when it's already selected. I've added the ranged units to the game, but currently they behave the same way as the infantry does, which means that they search for an opponent to target, charge towards them, and attack when they're within attacking range. So instead, I like for them to have a greater targeting and attack range, as well as being required to be a certain distance away from their target to fire. Since there is currently no melee animation for these ranged units, they'll just use the same one for both attacks. The archers now fire, but they also still charge towards the enemy, and so I think I need to rewrite some code in order for the units to behave correctly. So this took longer than expected, but now the battle scene is pretty much done. Except, of course, there's no overarching enemy AI, so they just stand there until you approach. But I will come back to that later. First, I want to add all the menus needed for the rest of the game to function. I made a plan here for how the overall game flow should be, but I'm still figuring out exactly how to structure and lay out the menus that I'm going to be creating for the next couple of days. I have some ideas, but I'm not entirely sure how it's going to work. So far what I've done is to make it so that you can load up the next level and it will show some flavor text as well as the enemy units that you'll fight against. If you click on one of them, it will also display the details of that specific unit. But as for choosing which units you'll bring into the battle from your own army, I have no idea how to proceed. I'm gonna take some time to relax and play a bit of Medieval 2 Total Wars in hopes of getting some inspiration. Plus, I also need to record the gameplay that you've already seen at the beginning of this video. With some luck though, I'll be able to finish the unit selection screen tomorrow. Okay, so in the end I made a unit selection more or less the same as when you view a unit. Then when you start the battle, it will load in everything correctly too. Since you lose units that die in battle, I need to make it possible to recruit new ones, so that's what I'll implement next. Aside from maybe 1 or 2 units that you start out with, all the others will have to be unlocked before you can recruit them. In the future, I would like to add things like ranks and XP, as well as keeping track of a unit's troop count between levels so that they will actually be different from one another. Now, I would like to implement a card system, but I'm running out of time, so I'll just quickly explain the idea. When in battle, I want the player to only have a certain number of cards available, let's say a third of the total amount that you have in your deck. These will be chosen randomly at the start of battle, so you have to think carefully about which cards and how many of each card that you keep in your deck. But yeah, that's for a future video. I've now added some sounds that I created for another game that I'm working on, called Blaze of Destron, which actually takes place in the same fantasy world. I also brought in some music tracks that Red Forge made for it, but of course later on I'll have them make an original soundtrack for this game too. One last thing I'll do is just to tell all enemies to mindlessly charge towards the player whenever you attack one of their units. And that's it for now. I'm interested in hearing what you think of this game. It obviously needs some more features, a somewhat decent AI and a lot more content, but I think this is a pretty good start. Anyway, thanks for watching, bye bye.